the lost city of Atlantis may have actually been found. No, seriously. Two researchers were working in the waters off the coast of Cuba when they discovered ruins that looked like an ancient submerged city. This happened about 20 years ago, but no one is talking about it today. It's like the authorities just took the research, locked it away in some top secret room, and decided no one else should know about it. But why? Okay, make yourself comfortable. In 2001, Pauline Zelitsky, a marine engineer, and her husband, Paul Weinswag, were hired to explore here off the west coast of Cuba. They had two main objectives: finding shipwrecks that might be hiding gold and jewelry, and discovering valuable oil and natural gas deposits deep underwater. They used sonar. Basically, this equipment is like sound-based radar. It sends out sound waves under the water, and when those waves hit something, like a shipwreck, they reflect off of it, just by listening to the echo. So this couple scanned the seafloor with this equipment at depths of over 650 meters. And lo and behold, they found something much more interesting than gold or oil. They found rocks. And not just any rocks. Huge, perfectly placed rocks, a bit like a mini version of the pyramid at Chichen Itza, or better yet, like a bunch of little flooded Chichen Itza. Yes, they saw that. Or at least they think they saw it. The thing is, sonar doesn't work like a camera. It certainly doesn't record video or take actual pictures underwater. It creates images using sound. And those images are usually just outlines or shapes, sort of a blurry black and white sketch. It shows you where something is, but it doesn't show you exactly what it looks like. And that's exactly what happened then. The equipment started producing images of these perfectly organized stone structures, and they really did look like an urban development. So the place was too organized, too symmetrical to be just random stones. But it all sounded too good to be true. That is, this discovery may well change everything we know about ancient civilizations in the Americas. So the scientists decided that it would be too irresponsible to draw any conclusions without finding, to 26, more evidence. And that's why they decided to go back to the same place. This time, they sent an underwater remotely operated vehicle to see what was going on under the water. See, this robot was essentially an underwater operator. And yes, their assumptions were confirmed. There was definitely something strange down below. It looked like an ancient city made of huge and smooth blocks of granite. The stones were about 2.5 by 3 meters in size. Some were pyramid-shaped, others were rounded. Some seemed to have been deliberately carved and then stacked on top of each other, while others looked isolated from the rest. Together they seemed to form corridors and the outlines of rooms. It was like finding large buildings in the middle of an underwater desert. These images were enough for Zelitsky to make a decision. Then she confirmed that this amazing structure could have been a large urban center. Again, according to her. The couple then began to speculate. They said that these structures were probably built more than 6,000 years ago, making them older than the Great Pyramids of Egypt. They are even older than the famous Mayans, a civilization who lived in the Americas and were known for their ancient and advanced temples. The study also suggested that these structures may belong to a civilization that lived in the Americas thousands of years ago that we didn't know about. This supposed civilization once thrived on a 160-kilometer land bridge connecting Cuba to Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. But then something catastrophic happened. According to their theory, faults beneath the Earth's surface shifted, causing a massive earthquake. Then, in the blink of an eye, the bridge was destroyed. The Earth was swallowed up by the sea, and ended up at the bottom of the ocean. And that civilization disappeared. Of course, the connection to the famous myth of Atlantis attracted media attention. News sites immediately carried the headlines, "Lost City Found, Caribbean Sea and Atlantis Found in Cuba." So, could this city really be Atlantis? I mean, have researchers finally found the remains of this supposedly overdeveloped and lost civilization? It's hard to say. From the beginning, part of the scientific community didn't have much faith in this story. First, there's the question of the date. Claiming that this civilization existed here at least 6,000 years ago would not be entirely convincing. Also, some European archaeologists have argued that the stones that were discovered with sonar could have just been natural limestone, not perfectly chiseled granite. Also, the city was too deep underwater. Even with the theory of earth faults, which open up and swallow everything, it's still hard to explain how an entire city ended up so deep in the ocean. For example, there is Heraklion, an actual ancient Egyptian port city, which ended up underwater. It is only about 6 meters underwater today, but this so-called city of Atlantis is 600 to 750 meters deep. Very different numbers, right? People believe that it would have taken about 50,000 years for such stone structures to sink to the depth where they were found. And according to experts, None of the known civilizations of that time were capable of building such structures. But for Zalitsky, it was possible. She still believed in the fault theory, which explains how the Earth ended up at the bottom of the ocean so quickly. Large movements of the Earth's tectonic plates are usually accompanied by phenomena such as volcanoes and earthquakes. Thus, she says, the flooding of the island could have happened very quickly. The earthquake theory could also explain why some of the megaliths on the seafloor look organized while others don't. But to really prove all this, you'd need a specially designed robot, which would go down there and take samples of rocks and sediments. That way you could find out their age, and maybe even find traces of human life, carvings, sculptures or artifacts. The problem is that drilling these structures is not easy. They look like granite, and drilling granite at this depth underwater is quite problematic. And most importantly, it takes money to do it. A lot of money. So maybe the scientists just didn't get funding, because even though there was hype, no further research was reported, and that lack of a sequel has generated a lot of speculation. Some people have even wondered if this story wasn't closed on purpose, as if the authorities wanted to keep something in the strictest secret, as if this underwater city was built by some higher extraterrestrial being, and they just don't want us to find out about it. But truth be told, the strongest argument in favor of that this is indeed a lost city is that nature supposedly couldn't have built something so symmetrical. Geologists have tried to find a natural explanation, or at least similar examples from other parts of the world, but they have failed. Nevertheless, just because we haven't found an obvious natural explanation doesn't mean there isn't one. Nature can create some pretty outlandish and unexpected things, so frankly, the whole too perfect to be natural is a weak argument. Most likely, the experts just weren't sure it was really a sunken city, and that's probably why no one pursued it further. Over time, the hype died down, the story lost relevance, and the site fell back into silence. And without more data, the true nature of these underwater formations off the coast of Cuba is still a mystery.